Number 10. The Madonna Inn. When you travel somewhere, you might want to stay in a place that is super chill and close to all the tourist traps so you can just shut your brain off and spend some money without worrying about anything for a few days. But not me. I want to go to some sketchy hole in the wall and party with the locals and wake up in a weird place and have to retrace all my steps to find my passport so I can eventually get back home. Basically, I love to live the hangover every time I travel. Well, the Madonna Inn tucked away in San Luis Obispo is this kind of place. This hotel has such a trippy vibe. It looks like a place that would make Tim Burton cream in his pants. I wouldn't be surprised if while staying there, instead of leaving you a chocolate on your pillow, it would just be a faded picture of Salvador Dali. This seems like the kind of place where the ghosts are always well dressed and super polite, even though they know they're dead. Number 9. The Glen Tavern Inn in Santa Paula. This place is known as one of the most haunted spots in California. I know I say that a lot in these videos, and I have no idea how a place becomes one of the most haunted places in California. Is there like an official board that makes these decisions, or is it based on how many times someone pees their pants from getting too drunk but then blames it on ghosts? Well, this place was built in 1911 and it was a hot spot for a minute. It was known for many celebrities coming through and it had very extravagant parties. But after the buzz passed, the Glen Tavern Inn ran into some hard times and they did what any good business owner does when things get rough. They started selling booze illegally, they opened a brothel, and started an illegal gambling ring. These guys really knew how to party. Now the building is more of a tourist attraction. Some people come there to visit to see if the ghost stories are actually real. Number 8. Peggy Sue's Dinosaur Park. Only in America can you find a place that is half diner, half dinosaur park. I feel like this is the ultimate mix of never growing up and realizing that you actually have to grow up. When Peggy Sue was a kid, she probably was like, when I grow up, I want to work at Jurassic Park. And then she grew up and was like, screw it, I'm gonna make my own Jurassic Park, but I still gotta pay rent. This is a great spot to stop if you're burning some rubber from Los Angeles to Las Vegas. You can stop at this spot to grab some greasy roadside food while also wondering how someone could afford to get a bunch of metal dinosaurs made on a diner owner's budget. It's kind of inspiring in a way. Don't let anyone tell you what to do. You can do anything you want because there are people out there doing some crazy stuff that you don't even know about. Number 7. Salton Sea. This place literally had something similar to the entire rise and fall of a civilization. In 1905, the Colorado River flooded and filled up a nice little area in California. In the 1950s, this became a major travel destination. There was a massive lake that people would love to come to. The place was teeming with life. There were fish in the lake, babes on the beach, and hot dogs in every hand of every red-blooded American that would come through for a good time. The only problem is that the lake didn't have a runoff, so eventually it became so salty that all the fish died, and then the lake straight up evaporated. Of course, with no lake and only a bunch of dead fish lying around in the sun, everyone stopped coming. Now if you go there, the place is a straight up ghost town. All there is to see is boarded up windows and the sting of salt on your sunblock creased skin. Hey, maybe if this whole global warming thing keeps going, this place will be amazing again. Stay positive. Number 6. The International Banana Museum. Sticking around this area, one of the main tourist attractions around this dried up lake was the International Banana Museum. Honestly, this is an amazing business model. It would be pretty hard to make a banana museum in this city. There's too much going on. You're competing with major sports teams and famous bands coming through. If you put it in the middle of nowhere and you're the most interesting thing for 250 miles, you might also be one of the only bathrooms. This way people have to come visit you, even if it means they're just doing it to survive because they got lost in the desert. Also, how many things could you put in a banana museum? This one's green, this one's brown. The yellow ones are way too rare, so we just put up a picture. I kind of want to go and just spend a bunch of money on some worthless stuff in the gift shop. I would love a shirt that says, "Why don't bananas snore?" Because they don't want to wake up the rest of the bunch. Number 5. The Rockahula Water Park. So I don't know if you guys know this, but California is a desert. So what is there a lot of in a desert? Well, basically everything except for living creatures and water. So you thought it was a good idea to build a water park in the middle of a desert. Where is the water gonna come from? Is the water park just supposed to get moisture out of the air like Frozone? This one just seems like a dumb idea. And that's why it went out of business in the 1960s. But you know what's even dumber? Someone spent millions of dollars trying to rejuvenate and reopen the thing thing in the 90s. The dude in charge was like, you know what would be a great investment? That thing that just lost millions of dollars a few decades ago. That's like someone investing in Toys R Us 20 years from now. Now what ended up happening? Well, someone slipped because it's a water park and they sued the park for millions, and that was the end of that. I would invest my retirement in classic Pokemon cars before I spent millions of dollars on a water park in the middle of the desert. Number 4. East 8 Mile Road, Stockton. More haunted places. The East 8 Mile Road is said to be one of the most haunted places in California. I bet if I said I could hear footsteps in my home, I could get on a most haunted list. I would just leave out the part that it's my roommate walking up and down the stairs. But all my sass and sarcasm aside, this place has some creepy stories about it. Apparently the road is haunted by a witch who will walk along the roadside in tattered clothes. If you drive past her and then look back for a second peek, you'll see her in your back seat. Yeah. No thanks. I know I make fun of all this haunted stuff, but the last thing I want is a witch ghost trying to hitchhike without asking. I only have one good pair of jeans, and I don't need to piss in them. Number 3. North Bloomfield Ghost Town. This town was built back in the day when people were trying to strike it rich with the gold rush. Miners from far and wide would come all over to try and live out the dream of becoming a rich man just off a bunch of rocks. I guess that's how people will look back on people who are trying to make it big off of YouTube videos. Geez, how lame all those people are gonna look. Now what ended up happening is none of the people got rich and everyone went home and probably got divorced. But then there was a second gold boom with hydraulic tools, and the second time around people got lucky. They built a town, and of course the gold rush ended, and now all that is left is a creepy shell of a city. It's a straight up ghost town, just like the other place. All the pictures of this place look like The Village from that movie, The Village. I need to find a better way to describe things. Number 2. Mono Lake. At first glance, this place looks absolutely breathtaking. It looks like a place you could have a first date and then propose and then roll around on the beach having sex all in the same night. The reason I've decided to put this natural aphrodisiac on the list is because inside the lake there are bacteria that are 760,000 years old. Not only that, the bacteria that are in the lake have a string of DNA that for the longest time no one could identify. There were alien bacteria, and I'm pretty sure this is how Invasion of the Body Snatchers starts. The water in the lake was very rich in arsenic. And what scientists have found is that the bacteria in the lake used arsenic to construct the missing parts of their DNA, and that's why they were hard to identify. But people who are big into conspiracy theories think that this is proof that aliens landed down on our planet. Whoa. Number 1 on the list, the glass beach of Fort Bragg. This is probably the only time pollution has done something cool. The glass beach of Fort Bragg was caused of years and years of people throwing their glass waste into the ocean. Now all of it comes barfed out in these cool little polished pellets. People from all over the world come to the beach to try and collect them. It takes forever for the ocean to polish one of these pieces of glass, and with so many tourists coming around from the world to come and collect them, one day these things will be extremely rare. Hopefully, because I hope we stop polluting. That being said, please don't throw your glass garbage into the ocean.
Number 10. Satan's Castle, San Bernardino. Yes, this place is called Satan's Castle, and it's a no from me. Satan's Castle sits on a mountainous region that is filled with both religious and satanic lore dating back to the 19th century. There are said to be underground tunnels linking to various points of interest across the mountain, which were used during the Prohibition era. These tunnels were created mostly for transportation and smuggling booze, but also served for darker purposes. One of these tunnels is rumored to connect a Catholic church to Satan's Castle. It is said to have been the grounds for dark ritualistic practices, which included both human and animal sacrifices, along with other dark ceremonies. Not to mention, inside one of the rooms a pentagram used to be painted on the ground. Local Christians painted over it with the John 3:16 verse, but the pentagram always bled through. Definitely sounds satanic to me, and I will not be visiting there. Number 9. Preston Castle, Ione. The Preston School of Industry, also known as Preston Castle, was a reform school that opened in June 1894 and was considered one of the oldest and best known reform schools in the United States. The boys there grew their own food, raised livestock, and learned farming trades. Additionally, there was a print shop, bakery, and cobbler shop where the boys could learn skills for self-preservation in the real world. The superintendent controlled the life inside the school, and discipline was extreme. Starting Starvation, isolation, and public paddling and lashings, and severe strategies were common at Preston. Now, this school has seen a lot of death. There are 17 men buried on the school grounds because they died there. Samuel Goines had his life ended after attempting to escape from the school. In 1950, Preston's head housekeeper, Anna Corbin, was beaten to death in the school's basement as well, and they never found out who did it. Employees and visitors believe that these young men are still haunting the school, which only closed in 1960, by the way. Those who have toured the grounds since have reported many strange sights and sounds, slamming doors, falling objects, disembodied voices, and ghostly physical contact. Number 8. Camp Pendleton, Area 41, San Diego. Camp Pendleton is a coastal Marine Corps base with a dark history. This place is divided up into sections, and Area 41 is haunted. Locks have been tampered with, furniture displaced, items gone missing, and strange noises are heard throughout the camp. Many think that this is done by one broken-hearted Marine in particular. This man was in love and had recently asked his girlfriend to marry him. After she had said yes, he thought his life was going great, but it didn't last long. The Marine was in his housing unit when his fiancée got a hold of him and told him that she was ending the relationship. He was so upset that he ended his life in a second-story room of the barracks. Now, some Marines are convinced his spirit remains in the area and haunts Area 41 in particular. A general feeling of unease is common here, and to this day, Marines claim that they hear the faint sound of a man softly humming the Jeopardy game show theme song around the grounds. I'm sorry. What? Number 7. The Hotel de Coriando, San Diego. Hotel de Coriando is a historic hotel that opened in 1888. Kate Morgan has haunted this hotel since 1892, the year she checked in and awaited the arrival of her husband. The two were traveling con artists, and not surprisingly, her husband never showed up, and 4 days later, Kate was found dead at the bottom of an outdoor staircase leading to the Coronado Beach. Today, those who check into Kate's room, which is now room 3312, have had spooky experiences to say the least. Curtains blowing even though the windows are closed, objects moved by unseen hands, murmuring sounds, and even sightings of Kate walking down the hallways and peering out the windows have all been reported. Her ghost is often seen both in the hotel and on the beach. Now, room 3519, formerly room 3502, is also haunted. Once a maid's room, it's been the site of numerous paranormal occurrences, such as objects moving around by themselves. Number 6. The Whaley House, San Diego. The Whaley House is the oldest brick structure in Southern California and was the home of Thomas Whaley and his family. At various times, it also housed Whaley's General Store, San Diego's second county courthouse, and the first commercial theater in San Diego. The house has witnessed more history than any other building in the city, and it is extremely haunted. One of the most infamous ghosts there is the spirit of Yankee Jim Robinson. Yankee Jim was hanged in the gallows where the house now stands in 1852 after being convicted of stealing horses. Thomas Whaley himself, who owned and lived in the house with his family years later, said they could hear heavy footsteps going up and down the stairs. Now, visitors have reported cold spots and the feeling of their chest and throat tightening within the home. Others claim to have seen Yankee Jim 2, an apparition that appears and disappears when you get too close. Today, and for many years, visitors to the house have also reported seeing Thomas. They usually see him wearing a frock coat and pantaloons standing on the second-story landing. Others have seen his wife Anna, usually floating around in the garden or the downstairs room. Her ghost, which appears white and billowy, seems to just drift about and then disappears. Number 5. Winchester Mystery House, San Jose. Now, after finding out what this place is, I really want to visit here. I mean, just by the name Mystery House, it's cool. Now, some backstory on the house. Sarah Winchester lived a tragic yet interesting life. She married William Wirt Winchester in 1862, who was a very wealthy man. Sadly though, her husband, mother, and father-in-law all passed away within the same year. To deal with her grief, she moved to California after gaining a large large inheritance from her husband. Then on top of all of that, Sarah was being haunted by the spirits of those whose lives were ended by the Winchester rifle, which her husband's company had invented. After her husband passed away, a psychic told her to evade the spirits, she would need to move out west, buy a home, and build non-stop. She took 36 years to construct the home, and this house has 6 kitchens, 2,000 doors, 10,000 windows, 17 chimneys, 160 rooms, and many doors and stairs that lead to nowhere. Workers and visitors swear they hear howling at night, loud creaking, and sometimes the kitchen smells like someone is actively cooking. But regardless if you believe in ghosts or not, the house is absolutely stunning. Number 4. Hollywood Roosevelt Hotel, Los Angeles. The Hollywood Roosevelt is considered to be one of the most haunted hotels in Los Angeles. It first opened its doors in 1927 and was a frequent home to Marilyn Monroe, who often stayed in the second floor cabana. Interestingly, the doors to this hotel are still open, allowing visitors to spend the night in Marilyn's suite, and some people claim to have seen Marilyn's ghost smiling and blowing kisses at them in their hotel mirrors. Hotel workers often talk about seeing the ghost of Charlie Chaplin and feel temperatures drop quickly from one room to the next. The apparition of Montgomery Clift has been blamed for patting guests' shoulders and watching maids in room 928, where he stayed for 3 months while filming From Here to Eternity. The ghost of Carole Lombard has also been spotted floating around the upper floors, and in the Blossom Room, where the first Oscars were held, 2 ghosts have been spotted, a presence of a tuxedoed man and a presence of a man in a white suit. Seems like if you want to meet a dead celebrity, the Roosevelt Hotel is the place to go. Number 3. Alcatraz, San Francisco Bay. The famous maximum security prison Alcatraz Federal Penitentiary earned a reputation as one of the most brutal and inhumane prisons in the country during its day. The strong currents around the island and cold water temperatures made escape nearly impossible, and the prison became one of the most notorious in American history. The prison closed in 1963, and the island is now a major tourist attraction. A total of 36 prisoners made 14 escape attempts, 23 were caught alive, 6 had their lives ended by guards during their escape, 2 drowned, and 5 are listed as missing and presumed drowned. Now, during its 29 years in use, Alcatraz held some of the most notorious American criminals, including Al Capone, George Machine Gun Kelly, and Bumpty Johnson. Today, it's a tourist attraction that many believe to be haunted. Inexplicable events happen, like the sound of someone playing the banjo. Many believe this to be the spirit of Al Capone, who spent his last days at the prison playing a banjo in the shower room to avoid being injured in the yard. The smell of smoke, the sounds of cell doors slamming, disembodied voices, moaning, and screams have also all been reported. Number 2. Queen Mary, Long Beach. Queen Mary is a retired British ocean liner that sailed from 1936 to 1967. She sailed to the port of Long Beach, California, where she is permanently docked. The city of Long Beach bought the ship to serve as a tourist attraction, featuring restaurants, a museum, and a hotel, but claims were made that the ship was haunted. There are resident spirits, including Jackie, the little girl who haunts the first-class pool, John Petter, who was crushed by a watertight door, Senior Second Officer William Eric Stark, who accidentally drank dry cleaning fluid instead of gin, and the cook, who was baked alive by his own kitchen staff during World War II. But most arguably, the most notorious location on the ship for paranormal activity is room B340. Reports claim someone was knocking on the door in the middle of the night, bathroom lights turning on by themselves, the sink faucet turning on and off on its own, and unexplained bathroom doors shutting. Some guests have reported the covers of their bed being pulled off while asleep and waking to see a dark figure standing at the foot of the bed. There are even more stories about this place, but I don't have enough time to fit them all in. If you're really interested in Queen Mary, I say do some homework on it because it definitely gets creepier. And coming in at number 1 is the Cecil Hotel, Los Angeles. The Cecil Hotel opened in 1925 as a well-furnished hostelry frequented by respectable couple people, but that didn't last long. As downtown became more and more dangerous, the Cecil became a place where bad people stayed, like the Night Stalker aka Richard Ramirez and Austrian killer Jack Unterweger spent time there. The Black Dahlia was rumored to have had her last drink at the hotel bar before she turned up dead a few miles away. In 1962, Pauline Otten jumped from the 9th floor window, ending her life. That same year, Julia Moore jumped from an 8th floor window, and Helen Green from the 7th floor in 1954. The Cecil Hotel may have rebranded itself recently as the Stay on Main, but it just can't shake its reputation as a place where scary things happen. In 2013, the body of Canadian tourist Elisa Lam was found in the hotel's rooftop cistern. Her body was discovered by a hotel maintenance worker investigating complaints of flooding and low water pressure. And yes, people had been showering in and drinking that water. Ugh. And last but not least, the ghost of a boy has reportedly been photographed outside a 4th floor window. Spooky.
Coming in at number 9 is Alien Blood. I actually read about this story a few years ago and I didn't realize how much of a lasting impact it left on California, but evidently I guess it did. Back in 1984 at Riverside General Hospital, a woman called Gloria Ramirez was admitted to the ER to have her blood drawn. But as soon as it was drawn, the foulest smell filled the room and her skin started becoming oilier and oilier. Then, like flies, the medical staff started dropping, half started passing out, while the other half lost complete control of their limbs. 5 members ended up being hospitalized and one even spent 2 weeks in intensive care. The weird occurrence affected over 24 members of staff, which left a skeleton crew to try and save her life. They failed and she died 40 minutes later. Until this day, no one has any idea what happened or what it was about her blood that took down 23 people. They dub it the legend of the alien blood that poisoned the hospital. And to me, I feel like science has a lot of answers for a lot of things, but when something comes up that they can't answer and nearly 40 years later they still can't answer it, that's worrying. At number 8 we have the Lady in White, because every urban legend video would not be complete without at least one ghostly lady wearing white. Hailed as one of the most famous Californian urban legends, the legend is about the thing that probably makes California famous, the Hollywood sign. The sign that has been the backdrop of countless Instagrams and movies and is said to be haunted by Peg Entwistle, a famous actress from the early 1900s. That's so Hollywood, isn't it? An actress haunting the sign. It came full circle almost. Anyway, the legend goes like this. After an excruciatingly harsh review of one of her movies, one people dubbed a career-ending review, she decided she couldn't take the thought of her career ending, and so she decided to end instead. She climbed to the top of the H in the sign and threw off of it. So based on that, many people claim a lady in white can be seen hiking in the off-limits area near the sign around the place she. But if you find yourself up there and are hoping to see a beautiful actress, you'd be quite wrong. What appears is an eerie woman with hollowed out eyes and a skeletal face. If she finds you there alone, she can influence you to follow in her footsteps and as well. In the century that followed her, many cases have been reported in the area, and in 2012 police even found a man's mutilated body parts and decapitated head right where she. Filling our number 7 slot is the prop of New Pike. So Elmer McCurdy was a famously notorious outlaw who died in the early 1900s. In 1911, his embalmed corpse became a sideshow act through Texas for people who wanted to come and gawk at the criminal and his displayed body. Or rather, his body traveled all over America, eventually landing itself in Long Beach, California. There, his body was mistaken for a prop and was hung in a fun house at New Pike Amusement Park. The truth was only discovered in 1976 when a film crew tried to adjust him and ended up dislodging his arm. Imagine going into that funhouse as a kid expecting mildly scary props and then coming face to face with a real corpse. I'd never go to an amusement park again. Legit I wouldn't. Now at number 6 is Old Stage Road. Now Old Stage Road is located in Salmas and it's been the site of horrible deaths, related deaths, and a Japanese camp was even located there during the wartime. So due to all that death, countless ghosts and spirits do haunt the road. But this specific story comes from Redditor Moonriver7811, who said his aunt told him a story of when she was young and pregnant. Her and her husband decided to take some back roads as a shortcut and ended up on Old Stage Road. She was looking out the window for a while and she suddenly saw a woman. The woman was keeping pace with the car and just turned her head to look at his aunt, and what she saw scarred her for life. The skin of the woman was was so pale it looked almost transparent. Her hair was like white hay, she seemed almost 100 years old. But it wasn't even her appearance that freaked his aunt out, it was the hatred and anger she could see in her eyes. The uncle stepped on the gas and they managed to get rid of her. And the user decided after hearing the story he should also go to the road as well with his friends at 3 AM drunk. The friends went there and stopped near Hangman's Tree and decided to walk on the road, not stay inside the safety of their car. Very stupid mistake, kids. One of the friends decided to pee on the tree, douchebag move, and it's not surprising that pissed off spirits after that. They got back into the car and were switching between CDs when they heard a loud "Get Out" on the radio. After hearing it and realizing it was none of them, they drove for their lives. Half a mile later, one of the friends in the back who had been asleep the whole time screamed, saying she'd had the worst nightmare. She never remembered going back into the car and said she was walking down the street and turned around and saw that the car wasn't there anymore. All of a sudden, an old lady with rotten teeth and claws tried to bite her, and that's when she woke up. Despite the road being old as hell, still continue to happen on and around it. Coming in at number 5 is Bigfoot. It's like the most well-known urban legend of all time. I'd argue it was maybe even the first one. But anyway, coming in second to Washington, California has the most reported Bigfoot sightings in the US. The creature, which is said to be a giant hairy human ape creature of sorts, is said to live in the wilderness. Yosemite National Park is said to be the most haunted national park in America because it was Bigfoot's first home. Campers have apparently seen it wander into their camps, to which of course they've screamed and ran away. The weirder part is that Bigfoot has been said to scream louder and run too, which is a bit cute, I'm not gonna lie. In 1962 on Mount Shasta, a woman claimed to have seen Bigfoot give birth, which A, I didn't even know it was a female, and B, now we have a mini Bigfoot on our hands. But I guess that was nearly 80 years ago, so it's probably adult Bigfoot now. Either way, I honestly feel like it's a harmless creature, so why don't we just leave the poor thing alone? It's not harming anyone. I mean, it hasn't harmed anyone yet. At number 4 are the Gates of Hell. A deserted road in Antioch called Empire Mine Road has a gate on its side that locals call the Gates of Hell. And at first glance it honestly looks like a rundown graffitied gate, and most people wouldn't even notice it driving by, but driving by won't do anything to you. It's crossing in the gates that could hurt you. The first legend about the gates is about an insane asylum that it used to be the entrance to. And it was one of those horror movie asylums. I'm talking straitjackets, lobotomies, shock treatments, the whole shebang. And because of that, many believe the ghosts of deceased patients stalk the area, and some even suffer from the same illness that they had in real life. And the spirits around asylums are usually angrier than ones found elsewhere, and if you cross the gate you could very well be attacked by one of the ghosts. One group of explorers felt rocks being pelted at them, and when they got back into their car they felt a giant creature leap onto the hood. The second legend is that it was a slaughterhouse that sat near the gates, and that the spirits haunting it are of the animals. But the slaughterhouse was also home to a horrific that happened in 1995. A man came running and screaming out of the slaughterhouse, head to toe dripping in blood, claiming his girlfriend had stabbed him. Before medics could get to him, he died. So there is a lot of bad energy radiating around this gate. Filling our number 3 slot is the statue. A girl named Jessica was babysitting for a rich family in California, so you can well imagine that the house was massive with rooms upon rooms inside. During the night in question, the parents went out for a movie, and so the dad told Jessica once the kids are asleep she could go watch TV in the living room. And that wasn't a nice move so she could be entertained, it was so she wouldn't wander and snoop around the house. The kids go to bed and Jessica starts watching TV. I mean, she tries watching it but can't ignore the clown statue in the corner of the room. Even though she found the statue a bit out of place in line with the other decor, she let it go, but after a while it started freaking her out so much that she had to call the dad. She asked him if she could switch rooms because the clown statue was freaking her out. The father replied saying get the kids and leave the house and call the police. She started asking him why, but he told her to just shut up and do it now. She ended up getting the kids and going to the neighbors and calling the police. But she later ended up calling the dad. He said they didn't have a clown statue and that the children had been complaining of a clown watching them sleep, but they assumed it was just a nightmare. Listen to your kids, people, listen to your kids. It's so funny, I've heard so many variations of this legend, but I had no idea it originated in California. Now at number 2 is the mask. Now this is an urban legend that circulates in California every year around Halloween. The legend has been around for decades, but it really only gained traction in the social media age. Yay for Twitter and the legend starts with a photo from 1962 of a bunch of masked figures posing for what seems like a Halloween party picture. Everyone's in a white face mask, but the figure in the middle is in a black hooded one. Legend has it moments after the photo was taken, the black hooded figure locked all the doors to the party and then went and 7 of the party members before escaping from the scene. No one has any idea who the man is, and the only thing ever found about the case was the mask itself. Ugh, I just don't like people in masks on Halloween from way back when, like their masks were so scary, and these days dressing up for Halloween isn't scary, but back then it actually was. And finally, at number 1 are the witches. East Bay's Black Diamond Mines are one of the scariest places in California. At the end of the 1800s, early 1900s, the area was a thriving coal mining community, and the people who lived there are still buried in the Rose Hill Cemetery. There are so many ghost stories surrounding the mines, but the most popular one is a story of Sarah Norton and Mary. Sarah was a widow who married Noah Norton, and it was widely known that she was a witch. One day her services were called for in the town of Clayton, but on the way there she was thrown out of her buggy and killed. In life, she was a very religious, pious woman who emphasized how she didn't want a funeral, yet the locals of Somerville felt she was owed one. The day of her funeral, a terrible storm hit the town and it was delayed. The following day, another storm hit, but this time the town's livestock also came charging through it. The townspeople realized that this all could have been Sarah's spirit telling them she didn't want a funeral under any circumstances. Since then, her ghost has been seen floating around town, but mostly lurking in Rose Hill Cemetery. Now on to Mary. It was a very common name back then, as you can well imagine, so we don't know what her last name was, but her occupation was being a nanny. But strangely enough, every single child she cared for ended up dying, and so the town accused her of witchcraft. And usually in these witchcraft cases, an innocent person is accused, but with Mary, they actually found evidence of her sorcery rituals. She was hung soon after and is said to be seen near the mines wearing full white. Honestly, what is it with ghosts and wearing white? Like, is it symbolism? What does it mean? Someone tell me.
Coming in at number 10, we have Alcatraz Island of Evil. I saw Alcatraz from across the water in San Francisco Bay, and I have to say, it is a very, very freaky place to look at. Before Alcatraz was even a high security prison, Miwok tribes of California were not about the rock. They thought that the sandstone rock that protrudes from the middle of San Francisco Bay was inhabited by evil spirits. When the prison was built on the rock, it became one of the most notorious high security prisons of all time. It's presumed that all who tried to escape the jail were killed. If the fall into the rocky water didn't kill you, the sharks that infested the water might. The prison was infamous for the criminals it hosted, their somewhat inhumane confinement, and the that happened within the walls of the jail. Alcatraz stopped functioning as a prison in 1963, but the memories of the building's brutal era live on. In 1946, 3 men were killed in a bloody standoff in Block C. Now these days, National Park employees believe that C Block is haunted. Security hear clanging and dissonant screams at night, and it's reportedly haunted by a troublemaking ghost called Butcher. He was a hitman killed by another prisoner. The most haunted place in the building, however, is allegedly Cell 14D, a solitary confinement hole. Now the hole is said to turn men crazy. Now, criminally insane, to me, is a lot worse than simply being a criminal. It seems that Alcatraz was always an island of evil spirits, but by building a jail there, the United States government added a few more to the mix, whilst damning others to expire there. Coming into number 9, we have the story of the Billywhack monster. Ah yes, the legend of Billywhack. So this Californian legend goes all the way back to the 1940s, but it is still going strong today. The old Billywhack Dairy building is situated in Santa Paula in Ventura County. The building was indeed an old dairy and was run by August Rubel, a German national living in the United States. Rumor had it at the time that Rubel had a secret lab under the dairy where he was working with the government to create a super soldier for warfare. In 1943, he had to go back to Germany, which was tricky as he was working for the Allies and war had already broken out. It seems that Rubel was killed by a German landmine and was unable to return to the Billywhack Dairy. Some years later, a strange creature was reported in the area around the now abandoned dairy. Most of the reports came from students at Santa Paula High School who called police to let them know that their cars were being hit by rocks. Who was throwing the rocks? Apparently a weird looking large animal. Some students even reported being set upon by a large white humanoid looking creature with goat-like horns and razor-sharp claws. It seems something fitting that description terrorized hikers nearby in 1964. It wasn't just the monster causing trouble either. Locals were getting frustrated with the teams of vigilantes turning up to try and hunt the beast. Coming in at number 6, we have the legend of California's skinwalkers. In Navajo culture, a lot of people believe in skinwalkers. Skinwalkers are said to be witches who ascend to their superhuman powers by murdering a close member of their family. These skinwalkers can then take the form of an animal of their choosing, haunting, although they usually appear as wolves, owls and coyotes, foxes and crows. These witches are said to be extremely dangerous, and you do not want to encounter one for fear of invoking their wrath. These skinwalkers are said to be most commonly found stalking deserts in California, like Death Valley. They are also said to appear in the Mojave National Reserve and Joshua Tree. When Nick Redfern visited Joshua Tree in August 2010 for a VH1 documentary, he said he came across a woman who helped save injured wolves and other animals in the area. It's very nice of her. Despite saving the wolves, she was deathly terrified of meeting a skinwalker, so much so that she wouldn't even utter the S word. Coming into number 7, we have Turnbull Canyon. Turnbull Canyon was dubbed the Dark Place by local native tribes, and that nickname has more to it than simply referring to a lack of light. Back then, the native tribes would refuse to set foot there. The place became even darker when Spanish invaders forced natives into the canyon, killing those that fell out of line. Since then, legend says that every Native American killed in the canyon still haunts it today, watching passers-by and waiting for the sun to rise. Many explorers feel watched when they venture out into the canyon. Not only is the canyon haunted by the spirits of the wronged natives, but it is also said to be a hotbed for occult activity. There have been reports of black-robed beings making effigies in the remote area. A string of disappearances around the nearby Puente Hills has been put down to satanic activity in the canyon. To make this a triple whammy of creepy, there is also an abandoned mental asylum in the canyon. Great. Coming in at number 6, we have the legends of Stowe Lake. The White Lady is said to be one of the ghosts of San Francisco, and this particular lost soul is said to haunt the Stowe Lake area of the city. Few are brave enough to walk by Stowe Lake at night, although some zealous youths do find it funny to turn amateur ghost hunters by provoking the spirit. Now, the story goes that once upon a time a woman was out walking her baby in a stroller. She became tired and she sat down on a bench next to the lake, taking in the sights. Another lady decided to sit down and join her, and they had a brief chat. While the women chatted, it is said that the stroller rolled away unnoticed, either because its brakes were faulty, or they weren't put on properly, or someone abducted the child. The mother became very distressed and started frantically wandering the area asking if anyone had seen her child. Eventually, she thought the baby must have rolled into the lake, and so she got into the water to look for her. After that, neither mother or child was seen again, and it is presumed that the woman drowned. These days, at night, her ghostly apparition still stalks the area looking for her child. Now, some versions of the urban legend say that you can summon the ghost yourself. Allegedly, if you say, white lady, I have your baby," 3 times over, the lady will appear. She'll then ask you, "Have you seen my baby?" And if you say yes, she'll haunt you, and if you say no, she'll kill you. Coming into number 5, we have the Angel of Bodie. Bodie is one of many Californian ghost towns. As we know, California was at the forefront of the gold rush, but it was also heavy on the silver mining. Bodie had 10,000 residents in 1859 and was thriving in 1894 when little Evelyn Myers was born. Growing up around a mine has its dangers, but as families settled to make their fortunes, this was the life many children in the southwest of the United States came to know. Little Evelyn was nearly 4 years old when she tragically lost her life. Her downfall was her playful curiosity. She liked to follow the miners to work, and she would often land herself in trouble with her parents. One day she followed a miner to work and he sent her back home, but she was sneaky and snuck back to watch him work. Sadly, he didn't know that she was behind him when he swung his pickaxe backwards and crushed her skull. A monument was erected in her honor, and it is now said that her ghost haunts a deserted town. She can be heard laughing and giggling as she skips gleefully around her home. Don't like this one at number 4. We have the story of the charred man of Creek Road. I don't like a ghost at the best of times, but charred ghosts with vacant eye sockets? No. No thank you, not today. The legend of the Charred Man has been told around Ojai campfires for decades. The Charred Man is said to stalk Creek Road and the Camp Comfort County Park. Many have reported seeing the ghostly apparition of a man on fire with black burned skin and hollow eye sockets. The Charred Man has most commonly been spotted in the Creek Road Bridge. When a car passes the bridge, it is said that he will emerge and glare at passengers. Not only that, he comes with a stench of burning flesh, which is something I've luckily never had to experience. Can only imagine it's truly awful though. It is said that the man leaves an imprint of ash on cars that get too close to him. Coming into number 3, we have the monster of Elizabeth Lake. While Elizabeth Lake in the Antelope Valley may look like heaven, it actually has a hellish legend attached to it. Los Angeles County's largest natural lake could contain a nasty beast. Legend has it that the lake was created by the devil himself, and he placed one of his own pets inside it. If you swim deep enough, you may find a secret passage that leads to the underworld. The lake monster uses this passage to move between Earth and the netherworld. Now, the lake was originally referred to by Spanish settlers as La Laguna de Diablo, the Lake of the Devil. This was because they were convinced of the lurking monster. In the late 1800s, a group of men claimed to have witnessed the ascension of a vast monster with bat wings coming out of the lake. Coming into number 2, we have the story of the Fresno Nightcrawler. The Nightcrawler. Rumors of a strange cryptid walking around at night in Fresno, California began surfacing in the late 90s and early 2000s. There were only a handful of eyewitnesses, and reports were shaky until some strange footage emerged in 2008. CCTV videos seemed to show a strange biped walking around a road. By biped, I mean that was pretty much it. The figure was all legs walking down the street like dexterous tweezers, or I guess a bit like possessed trousers. I don't like it. I don't like it. The footage is grainy, but definitely strange. Why not have a watch for yourself? Many people think that this strange Nightcrawler is some kind of Fresno monster, but more people out there think it's an alien. Similar cryptids have been spotted in Yosemite and Poland. What is this figure? Is it a puppet? Is it an alien? Is it an undiscovered creature? A ghost? A ghoul? Is the Fresno Nightcrawler real, whatever it may be, or is it a bizarre hoax? I just don't know. Finally, coming into number 1, this actually deeply unsettled me, and this has got more eyewitnesses than any on the list. We have the Dark Watchers of Santa Lucia. The Dark Watchers are a legend in Santa Lucia, California, and were known by Spanish settlers as Los Vigilantes Oscuro. The Watchers are regularly described as tools, sometimes giant-sized, figureless dark silhouettes, often adorned with brim hats or walking sticks. They have been frequently spotted in the Santa Lucia Mountains watching passers-by. Now, the figures are mainly spotted around twilight and dawn. No one has ever seen one up close, and it is said that if a person does ever come close to one, they'll disappear. They've been regularly spotted by walkers, and many believe that if they stay on the path they're on and just keep on going about their business, the Watchers won't bother them. Writer John Steinbeck's son Thomas believed that he saw the Watchers growing up. In the late 1960s, a high school principal reported seeing a tall man with a hat watching him as he led a group hike. When he called out, the figure disappeared. Now, people still report seeing these Watchers to this day. Scientists offer a number of different explanations for the sightings, with some saying that they could be Brocken specters. These happen in certain atmospheric conditions when the sun is at a particular angle. This could explain the whole dawn and dusk thing. Others say they could be fatigue-based hallucinations, but honestly, as people keep spotting them, the legend just keeps on growing.
At number 10, we have Ghost Cow. What am I talking about? This sounds ridiculous, but also a little spooky, and that's why it's a perfect way to kick off this list. There are several islands off the coast of San Francisco. One is the Yerba Buena Island. This island used to be a hotspot for all sorts of sailors and pirates. They would stop there to camp, and they would get so drunk that they would throw up all over the boat the next day. But also something else they would do was go hunting, and legend says a group of pirates went hunting on the island and found a little baby cow. The pirates are a lawless bunch, so they don't really have any qualms about killing an infant animal. But the mom of this little baby cow went looking for her calf and couldn't find her, and then cried all night. And now it's said you can still hear the cries of this mama cow on the Yerba Buena Island. At number 9, we have the dogs outnumber children. The dogs run San Francisco, and things are gonna start changing around here. There are gonna be snacko bars on every corner, and leashes are outlawed. Also, the only jobs left for humans are door openers and poop disposal man. This one is more of a new aged urban legend. If you've ever been to San Fran, you know that the dog population is insane. I don't know how people can afford the crazy rent and haircuts for a poodle, but they make it work. If you're scared of dogs, then this place would sound like hell on earth. A bunch of jagged tooth beasts running around a city, The only thing that could stop them is a very big vacuum cleaner. But for someone like me, who absolutely loves dogs, this actually sounds like a paradise. It would take me an extra 40 minutes to get to work every day because I would have to stop and pet every dog. You can't just pet one dog because the other dogs will know because they can smell it on you, and then they get sad because you pet another dog and not them, so you gotta pet all the dogs. It's only fair. At number 8, we have rogue fire hydrants. There's a legend that an Oakland man was killed by a rogue fire hydrant. I thought those things were put in place to help people and tell me where I'm not allowed to park, not mysteriously kill people. It was 2007 and a fire hydrant exploded. A piece flew into the side of a man's car, it destroyed his tire, and sent the guy speeding into a pole, killing him on impact. At least that's what the legend says. I don't know if anyone would have suspected something like that could ever happen. I bet his ghost is still like, I don't believe this. I'm being pranked right now. Where's Ashton? At number 7, we have a zombie horse jockey. Not the scariest of the zombie athletes, unless they're on top of a zombie horse. That actually sounds like the most ridiculous, scary thing that I have ever heard of. There's a legend in San Francisco about a jockey from the 30s who was pronounced dead, and then his body got up and walked away. Probably to go bet on horse racing while he gnawed on someone's scalp. I'm assuming that's what a zombie jockey would do. But this legend is somewhat steeped in truth. In 1936, a jockey by the name of Ralph Neves fell off his horse during a race and was stepped on repeatedly. He was pronounced dead on sight. They slapped a toe tag on him and sent him to the big cold morgue. You know where they have those big fridges for the dead bodies? But before they actually got the opportunity to send him, he came back to life. He was incredibly injured but not dead. You know what they say, you can never kill a jockey. Actually, I just made that up. At number 6, we have the streets are paved with dead bodies. If you want your city to flourish and become the cornerstone of a country where people want to go to build a life, you need paved roads. There's an old legend about San Fran back in the late 1800s. The city needed some paved roads so they could finally be taken seriously. But they didn't have the money or the materials, so they started using dead bodies and bones, and it worked really well. Well, the legend might be true, but here's something that's super strange that I know for sure is true. Many of the streets in San Francisco are actually paved with guns. The road crisis was a real thing, and people donated some of their guns so the city could use the wood and metal to help build the streets. At number 5, we have the light bulb of doom. Jesus, we got ghost cow, zombie jockey, too many dogs, now light ball of doom. It sounds like a pitch meeting for a horror movie that has the budget of a bag of chips and encouragement from someone's grandma. But this one is actually very interesting. In Livermore, there's a fire station that has the longest living light bulb. How long do you think this bad boy has been going for? 20 years? 50 years? Try over 100 years. This thing has been going strong since 1901, and Apple can't even make an iPhone that stays fast longer than 8 months. But there are some spooky tales that go along with this light bulb. Some people say that when it goes out, it could bring on a fire that is so violent no fire station could put it out. Others say that there's a spirit of a dead firefighter who wants the light to stay burning for his colleague. With the California wildfires coming closer and closer, this urban legend seems eerily possible. At number 4, we have the Condor Club hauntings. One of the most famous clubs in all of San Francisco, this place has been around for over 50 years. So it should be no surprise that there are some spirits that go along with this place. The most famous being the ghost of a bouncer who was crushed by a piano. That is such a Looney Tunes way to die. The next guy who dies there is probably going to be blown up by a stick of dynamite. His ghost has been spotted standing outside of the club. It's crazy how when people die on the job, their ghosts just go back to work in the afterlife. Like, you're dead, do whatever you want. At number 3 of the Legion of Honor hauntings. The Legion of Honor is one of the oldest standing monuments in San Francisco. It was built back in the 1800s and now stands as a museum. Since then, it has been the beacon of all sorts of supernatural happenings. People have heard moaning, screaming, and even entire groups of ghosts walking through the museum. And there is a very good reason why this place is haunted. In 1994, there was some major updates that needed to be done to this building. The construction workers had to excavate underneath the Legion of Honor, and they found over 800 dead bodies. It's assumed that most of these people couldn't afford proper burials. They removed all the bodies they found, but it's suspected that there are hundreds more buried on the property. At number 2, we have Shark Bay. Let's keep the theme going of cheesy movie titles. There's an urban legend that the San Francisco Bay is littered with sharks. If you were afraid of swimming in it before, then this is only going to heighten your fear. Apparently it was one of the main deterrents that kept people in Alcatraz prison. There was no way any of them wanted to try and make the swim to safety because they thought they would all end up fish food. That's basically the best security system you could ever install. Your security detail is a bunch of man-eating sharks, and you don't need to pay them anything. You just pay them in fish guts. There's literally only one thing I can think of that would make that better.
Sharks with frickin' laser beams attached to their heads.
And for our number 1 spot, we have needles. This has been an urban legend in many places, but it was especially present in San Francisco because there has been a history of intravenous drug use. This has been one of the scariest things I could ever imagine, but there have been tales of a psychopath infected with who would fill needles with their infected blood. They would then go somewhere busy where it would be hard to notice them, like a concert or a movie theater. And the legend always says they would go somewhere dark or a place where people are inebriated. Then when no one's looking, they would inject people with their infected blood, knowingly spreading their disease and using it as a weapon. In some more horrific versions of this tale, the maniac follows the person home so they can leave them notes and continue to torment them after they've already ruined their life. This tale has been around for a long time, so it's safe to say it's not true, but it's still one of the scariest things I can think of.
In at number 10, this creepy statue is located at the entrance of Stowe Lake. It was built in 1914 to honor the pioneer women of the Old West, and it was placed in Golden Gate Park in the 40s. But this isn't a regular statue. There are a ton of rumors about the statue being able to move on its own, something that it shouldn't be able to do. Witnesses have said that they can see the woman's head move from side to side as if she was looking for something. Maybe she's looking for her missing child. It is also said that she will change her facial expressions, and sometimes she'll distort her face to look like a hideous monster. Sounds like I'll be staying away from this statue. There are also a lot of stories about seeing a phantom shape of a third child statue, but when you go closer to it, it just disappears. Oh, and you can also hear the sounds of evil children laughing if you get too close, so be warned. The tunnels of Chinatown brings us to number 9. Apparently there are a ton of secret tunnels buried deep under Chinatown, and residents of Chinatown use them to get to their hidden opium dens and gambling rooms without being caught. There's been a ton of speculation that these tunnels were once a really shady tourist attraction, while others still say that it's used for illegal activity. But due to an earthquake, it is now believed that these tunnels are now blocked off by fallen debris. But who knows, maybe someone found a way in, so we never know what might be lurking inside of these tunnels. Mary Ellen Pleasant haunts us in at number 8. She was a former slave who came to San Francisco in 1899. Eventually she was able to open up her own restaurant, where she would pick up stock tips from wealthy businessmen who ate there. She was so clever that she was able to use these stock tips to make herself rich. She built a very nice mansion on Octavia Street, where she lived with her business partner and his wife. But here's where things got ugly. She was accused of pushing her business partner down the stairs and killing him. She was pressured to move out of the city, and she quickly lost all of her savings and died a few years later. I mean, talk about bad karma. So now it is said that her spirit haunts the Memorial Park on Octavia and Bush Street. And if you stand on the plaque and politely make a wish, it will be granted, but beware, Mary Ellen Pleasant will throw rocks at your head if you don't show her the proper respect. So make sure when you're making a wish, give some respect. The Pinecrest Diner brings us to number 7. This restaurant sits on the corner of Mason and Gary, and there's a sign that reads, Best Breakfast in San Francisco. Okay, I couldn't vouch for the food there because I've never been. I've been to San Francisco many times, but if you like your eggs poached, then you should probably never eat there. And that's because this restaurant refuses to make it because of an urban legend that has been circulating around. Apparently a murder took place at this diner in 1997. The cook the waitress, and rumors has it that earlier that day, the waitress yelled at the cook for making poached eggs when they aren't even on the menu. According to the legend, the chef was so angry that when he came into work the next morning, he came in with a gun. The cook never admitted that the eggs were the cause of his rampage, but the restaurant refuses to serve them to this day. Up next, number 6, we have the Golden Gate Park Ghost. It is said that if you drive your car through the Golden Gate Park at night, and if you do it with your headlights off, a police officer will pull you over and give you a ticket. However, when you go to pay for the ticket, it will be invalid because the police officer doesn't actually exist. According to the legend, this cop lost his life in the line of duty in this park, but his spirit is still on duty. He roams around the park and approaches people who have committed traffic violations. So even though this is probably just an urban legend, a lot of people in this area said that they've run into him. So it's gotta be real, right? So the next time you find yourself driving in Golden Gate Park at night, you might want to obey by the traffic laws just in case. Or you might be pulled over by this phantom police officer. Golden Gate Bridge moves on to this list at number 5. Since 1937, more than 1,500 have occurred on the Golden Gate Bridge. Police have tried to prevent from happening on this bridge, and they did this by closing pedestrian access after 6:30, and they've even assigned officers to patrol the walkway. But the tormented souls of the dead jumpers continue to haunt this bridge even to this day. It is said that on dark, foggy nights, the spirit can be seen roaming along the walkways while he's searching for their next victim. Witnesses have reported hearing screams and feeling pulled towards the edge of the bridge. Alcatraz prison brings us to number 4. I've been there and it's very airy. Like, you hear a lot of noises. It's for sure haunted. Well, given the amount of prisoners who spent many years on this lonely, cruel island, there are a ton of angry spirits that are haunting this old prison, and I might be able to attest by that. There are reports of shadowy figures, weird mist, cold spots, and there are a lot of noises in the prison as well. If you visit the prison, you'll hear moaning, sobbing, and screams for help. They can even move objects, and if you're unlucky, you might even feel one of them brush past you. It is also said that you will feel cold chills and feel like something bad is going to happen. And if you value your life, you should never visit 14D. I've done it and it is terrifying. And that's because an angry spirit is trapped inside of the cell, and if he gets a hold of you, you'll probably never make it out alive. I was able to meet one of the officers who were actually active during the Alcatraz days. Sutro Forest takes us to number 3. Well, it looks like San Francisco has their own version of forest, just like Japan. Even though this forest looks like a beautiful spot to have a picnic, it has a very dark history. Between the years of 1899 and 1908, several bodies were found dead in this forest. This forest is so big and dense that it became an ideal location for people to commit without being seen. Because the forest is so thick, it is believed that there are hundreds of bodies that still have to be found. And according to the local legend, the ghosts of these bodies still linger in the forest, and you can hear bones breaking and whispers if you walk in the forest at nighttime. The Sutro Bath Ruins brings us to number 2. On the west side of San Francisco, on the south side of San Francisco, there are stone ruins that have crumbling stairs and old buildings that are said to be incredibly haunted. The Sutro Baths are said to be cursed, and this belief is still perpetrated today. Those brave enough to enter the cave have reported seeing a strange creature hiding in the cave. There are scratch marks on the walls, piles of animal carcasses, and bones left behind. You can even hear unexplained noises and footsteps echoing throughout the tunnel. And apparently this creature doesn't look like it's from Earth. If that wasn't enough, another urban legend says that this cave was the place where people would perform dark satanic rituals that involved human sacrifices. I don't know about you guys, but I'm thinking that we should close off this tunnel and never speak of it ever again. The Lady of the Stowe Lake tops this list at number 1. This lake can be found in Golden Gate Park, and this urban legend is about a mother who took her baby to the park in a stroller in the early 1900s. Well, she stopped at a park bench to rest, and she began chatting to another woman. But she didn't realize that the stroller started to roll away, and it crashed into the lake. Once she realized that her baby was gone, she began to panic as she frantically searched for her baby. The mother was last seen going into the lake, so those people who were brave enough to visit the park at night might run into this devastated mother who is still searching for her baby today. It is said that she now haunts this lake, and she will terrorize people into helping her search for her baby. But be careful, she might even try to pull you into the water herself to try to help search underneath the water for her baby. Getting us scared in at number 10 is John Soden and his house in Los Angeles. It's time to brace yourselves because this story is pretty dark. Back on January 15th, 1947, a woman's body was found on this lot. Her became one of the most reported murders of the time because of the gruesome way in which her body had been found. She was surgically cut in half from the waist down, washed, cleaned, and posed by her killer. Residents who have since lived there have reported hearing strange noises, such as the dragging of heavy chains, heavy footsteps, and voices calling their name. It's actually a really nice looking house, but it is full of negative energy, and it is also believed that anyone who steps foot in this house will be cursed. So, you know what? I'm good at just admiring the architecture from like Google Maps. I don't even have to see it in real life. The Queen Mary's ship creeps onto this list at number 9. I had to include this one on this list because people technically did live on this ship, and it is referred to as one of the most haunted ships in America. It was operated since the 1930s, but now it is permanently docked in Long Beach, California, and it is used as a hotel. As nice as this might sound, while guests on board will often experience sleepless nights, there have been a bunch of scary paranormal activities reported on the ship. Guests will say that they will hear creepy kid laughter in the middle of the night, or things will be flown across the room. And room B340 has been taken out of rotation after there's been numerous violent poltergeist activities. It's actually impossible to keep someone in that room for the entire night because they will just get scared away. For me, I would probably last a minute. Probably not even that long. Up next, number 8, we have the Stanley Warehouse. This is a notorious haunted house that has a long reputation of being one of the most haunted places in Orange County. One of the most talked about frightening ghosts that live here is the previous owner. During her golden years, she was unable to climb up the stairs, so after her death, she is known to appear in spirit on the staircase, blocking others from going up. Visitors have reported that they found it difficult or even impossible to get past her and go up the stairs. Oh, and let's not forget about the spirit of an old man who you can hear whispering nasty and offensive things while you sleep. And if you visit the house, you will be able to hear a baby crying upstairs, but when you go into the nursery, no one is there. That would freak me out. I think I would want to visit this house just to see if I can make it upstairs, but you'll never convince me to sleep there. I mean, I just value my life way too much, and I gotta find out what happens next on Bachelor in Paradise. Moving into number 7, we have the Battery Point Lighthouse. This is an iconic lighthouse located in Crescent City, California, and it was built back in 1856. There has been numerous reports of strange and creepy occurrences happening there. Lighthouse workers and guests say that they have heard what sounded like someone wearing large boots stomping around. There have also been reports of items moving, cold spots, and the feeling that someone was touching them when no one was even there. Apparently there are 3 ghosts that haunt this lighthouse, because one just isn't enough. No one seems to know who they are or why they are haunting this place. All I know for sure is that we should just board up the place and just leave it alone, just forget about it. Every now and again a visitor will feel someone tapping on their shoulder, or furniture will move by itself. I mean, that is definitely not okay, and definitely you don't want to be there on a stormy night. Bad things are said to happen there when it rains. The Whaley House haunts us in at number 6. This house was built on an old site where the public executions used to occur. So yeah, I would say this place is pretty damn haunted. Over the years, many descendants of the Whaley family lived and died in that house, and when the house was being restored, workers and visitors began to notice strange and mysterious sounds, sightings, smells, and encounters. A lot of people reported hearing scary noises and loud footsteps that left footprints. You can actually visit this house and take a tour, but I'd rather not. I'd rather spend my time at Disneyland, where I know it's 100% safe and not too scary, or is it? This place is littered with scary ghosts, and a lot of unsettling things have happened there. I'm getting the chills just thinking about it, so I gotta move on. Let's move on, let's see what we have next. Well, you know what? The Red House jumps into number 5 next on our list. This is an old abandoned house that is occupied by a vengeful spirit. Back in the beginning of the 20th century, an engaged couple used to live here. Well, on the night before their wedding, they had a huge fight, and the man pushed his fiancée down the stairs. She died, and he buried her in the backyard. Well, today, she has been seen haunting the house and nearby businesses. People have reported that she is wearing her wedding dress that is covered in blood. Is it her own blood? And local legends say that if you step in front of her, she'll rush forward and drag you to her gravesite, and you will never be seen again. Okay, I don't think I'm going to be visiting this creepy thing anytime soon, or any of these haunted houses on this list. I'm just not brave enough. Like I told you, I hear wind and I run. I see something just a bit bigger than a chihuahua and I run. Okay, the Glen Tavern Inn creeps us in at number 4. This house was built in 1911, but don't be fooled by its beautiful exterior. This house has a very ugly past. Back during the Prohibition, they converted the 3rd floor into a speakeasy, brothel, and gambling den. And one of the most infamous rooms is room 307. which is said to be haunted by 2 ghosts. The amount of paranormal activity here is very high. Visitors said that they saw children running through the halls, and some say that they've seen an angry man and a one-eyed female. There are also reports of the spirits playing the piano in the middle of the night, and others have said that their stuff was stolen. There have also been a lot of deaths that have occurred in this room. A cowboy was and a woman was and left in a closet. So needless to say, this place has a lot of angry and vengeful spirits. Las Coches Adobe makes it onto this list at number 3. This might be one of the most terrifying places in California, and you know what's even more terrifying? The fact that I probably pronounced it wrong. This building is located on an old mine site, however it was covered up because on one horrific day, an accident occurred in the mine and about 30 workers were trapped inside. All of them lost their lives, so it's no wonder that this place is haunted. Locals and visitors have said that they heard the screams of the trapped miners echoing from the property, and there are also numerous reports of a lady in black and a male phantom walking around the grounds. Some people have even said that they've seen the ghost of a hanging man from a tree. And then we have the dark force. Locals say that this force is strong enough to throw you to the ground, and then you can feel heavy footsteps walking on your back, preventing you from getting up. There are a bunch of people who have said that they will never step foot in this place again, and I'm one of them. I don't blame them. Number 2, we have the Winchester Mystery House in San Jose. Since it was built in 1884, the mansion is said to be haunted by ghosts who were with Winchester rifles. Construction began in 1884 and never stopped until the owner died in 1992. The owner believed that her house was haunted by victims, and the only way to keep them quiet was to keep on building. The building was opened by the public in 1923, and the staff and the visitors have reported seeing mischievous spirits who liked to torment them. So yeah, don't be fooled by this beautiful house, because it is actually full of ugly surprises and scary ghosts lurking in every corner. But for those of you guys who are either brave or really naive, well, you can actually take a tour there and see all of the ghosts and scary paranormal activities for yourself. Alcatraz tops this list at number 1. Prisons are often the site of restless spirits and hauntings, and Alcatraz is no exception to that. This prison was the site of violent activities, and it housed some of the most dangerous criminals in the world. Alcatraz is actually a breeding ground for the paranormal. One of the most feared presence on the island is known as the Thing. This creepy spirit has red glowing eyes, and it has been recently seen by visitors and also by the prison staff when Alcatraz was in operation. Other common reportings are of creepy voices, sobbing, screaming, and the banging of cell doors. Some have even said that they felt as if they were being touched, felt cold, and they even had an emotional outburst of either sadness or anger just out of nowhere.